tous, c'est Mélissa de Start in Blockchain. Aujourd'hui, on se retrouve à UC Berkeley, aux États-Unis, avec Daniel. Hello Daniel.
Hi.
Aujourd'hui, on va démystifier la blockchain et voir un petit peu toutes les applications qui en sont possibles. So it's a very pleasure to meet you today, Daniel.
Likewise.
Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. My name is Daniel Gushchyan. I'm a second year studying computer science here at UC Berkeley. I found myself very interested in the blockchain space and then looking forward to going into it as a career.
How selective is it to get into UC Berkeley?
So at the end of the day, the main thing with UC Berkeley is that it's a public school, meaning that it gets most of its funding from the state of California. And so it kind of depends on which group of people you're talking about as a result. The state or the school has a responsibility to teach California students because taxpayers and all that. So I think overall the acceptance rate is 15%. So 15 people out of 100. I think it's maybe a bit more common for, or a bit easier for local students as opposed to internationals out of state. But I don't know the exact numbers. You definitely have to be one of the top students of your high school in order to get in, but yeah.
So what makes UC Berkeley the best place to learn blockchain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I didn't realize is the case until I came here and I got involved with Blockchain at Berkeley and the greater community here. But I realize now that is definitely the case. If I were to be applying again and I was interested in blockchain the way I am now, I'd be much more confident about my choice to go to Berkeley. And I think what it is really just comes down to Blockchain at Berkeley, the organization, which leads a lot of the blockchain activities and everything that happens here on campus. But also what gives Blockchain at Berkeley its opportunities and everything that it's able to do is the people here. There's just a great source of talent at Berkeley, whether that's professional in terms of companies and people, existing expertise, existing researchers that have gone interested in the space, but also the student body. At Blockchain at Berkeley, there's so many students at different levels, people that are first-year students that are incredibly deeply involved in the space. And I think one of the great things about this space is because it's so new. It only takes like a few months of really deep research into any particular field of crypto, and you can become the expert in it. And I feel like we have a lot of those experts.
Okay. Yeah. And can you tell us just a little bit more what is exactly Blockchain at Berkeley?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Blockchain at Berkeley is an organization here on campus, student-run. It comprises of three main externally facing departments. There's the research department, which conducts research, both technical and less so. For example, today we have a few research projects. One of them includes doing research on regulation and how the SEC is reacting to DAOs and other areas of crypto. We have some more technical research as well. Then we have the consulting department and the education department. Consulting is involved with building out proof of concept projects and other forms of consulting for companies. These companies may be Fortune 500 companies, or nowadays is more crypto companies. So yeah, we build out proof of concepts. We otherwise explain or introduce them to them how they can use blockchain in their company, in their systems. And lastly, we have the education department, which is obviously focused on education and spreading knowledge about the space and what blockchain is about. I'm personally an education member. And so we have some courses that are run by students on campus. So you'll have students be learning from other students here. Our blockchain fundamentals course, I think, has about 200 students now. It's really growing quickly. And we also have a edX course that has, I think, at this point, reached a following of 200,000 students. And so, yeah, those are our main kind of three fields.
Yeah, there are a lot of students at UC Berkeley involved in the blockchain space, so that's something amazing. How did you get interested into the blockchain?
Yeah, I think I came in with definitely interest in the philosophical ground and the philosophical side of the movement. At the core of the movement, or at the core of blockchain, stands kind of the cypherpunk movement, where the idea is really focusing on individual rights and freedom and privacy, and using encryption and technology to create that for people. And that's kind of how Bitcoin started, with a privacy-focused way of creating a monetary system that doesn't rely on any individual government or entity of some kind that can control your money. And so kind of the place where I came from, the context that was in my mind that made me realize the importance of this was the war in 2020 that occurred between Armenia and Azerbaijan. As an Armenian, I got to see kind of firsthand what it means for sovereign nations to be powerless, or just the power disbalance between sovereign nations. I realized that because there is no centralized entity that controls or forces accountability on all sovereign states are kind of on the same level, but at the same time, because of that, there is no real way of creating accountability amongst these actors. You can't have it's like a flat power structure, or in some sense, but because of that, there's no way to actually make sure that rules are followed. And so when I kind of had that in my mind, I was struggling to see how I could try to fix these social problems with technology. And that's exactly what we kind of teach students, teach to our students, is that blockchain is a technological solution to a social problem. You'll hear this a lot, and this is exactly kind of what I realized and why I got so attached to it. And so what made me kind of get attached exactly was learning about Bitcoin and realizing Bitcoin is an example of a decentralized system where every individual has no more power than the other individual, but at the same time, accountability is enforced. On the Bitcoin system that you and I, without even knowing each other, without having any kind of trust in each other, we know that if we make a transaction, you will get the money that I send you, and I will have that money deducted from me, and our transaction will go through no matter what, whoever is not interested in it or interested in it not happening. And so when I saw this, I was really intrigued in how we can take this philosophy and apply it to other aspects of human life, whether that's on social interactions or political, whatever that may mean. And so that's my interest in blockchain.
Okay, interesting. And if you could explain what blockchain is to someone who has never heard about it before, how well will you do it?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to understand blockchain, first kind of detach it from everything that you hear in the news about it, and realize that at the end of the day, it's an improved mechanism for something that we already have a lot of and we need. And that's essentially just a way of recording information. Specifically, there's three kind of ways, or three aspects to blockchain that make it very powerful for this. One, it has auditability, meaning everyone can see all the information that has been posted on the blockchain or a blockchain ledger, and then it has a immutability, meaning no one can change the values on that, and also accessibility, meaning you can always anyone has access to writing to it, and also there's the timestamping, meaning you have some kind of chronological context to these information written down. And so throughout human history, humans have created many systems where this is an important, or these elements are needed. For example, property rights. You want to have basically a system where you can write down who owns what piece of land, and be able to see the state as it changes between one person to another, how much they sold that land for, and the important thing is you want to be able to essentially prove and see that is indeed the case, that a certain person owns the piece of land. You want to be able to, if you buy, or if you want to change the ownership of that land, you have the ability to actually go and maybe give someone else the ownership of your land, and also you want to see about when that happened, in what order. And so today we usually put these records, this is such an important job that we entrust this process to governments and other regulated, powerful entities. The problem with that is, while governments can be efficient at record keeping like this, they're also very brittle to political problems, to geopolitical problems. And so, for example, if one country invades another country, fundamentally, what they'll do is fundamentally change the structure of ownership, right? Like this land that used to be owned by these people now is owned by another person. And say that country that invaded gets repelled back or whatever, things change, then people come back and now they have to figure out, okay, well, what's the state of the situation now? Who owns this land, or how do you keep track of all that, right? All this, because this record keeping is done by these governments, it's very brittle, and and also you have political problems or political vulnerability. Maybe a certain entity has a strong interest in the truth being in some certain manner, and so because of that, all this information is inaccessible to us. We don't see how it is exactly, and it's out of our control and can be manipulated. What blockchain brings to us is a mechanism for record keeping that is transnational and gives essentially power to all the individuals running it, or not all the individuals, but all individuals, period, because everyone can access and become part of the system. And basically it gives you an ability to, a way to record keep in a transnational way that has all these properties, and no matter what entity may exist, and no matter how strong their interest may be in changing the way, the state of the ledger, they are unable to. It gives us asymmetric power that we haven't seen before. This is extremely exciting and really, really important because it's finally giving an opportunity for truth to not be dictated by certain powerful entities, but rather what it truly is in the open community of everyone on the globe. And so Bitcoin, one that you hear a lot about, is a use case of blockchain. It's realizing that, hey, this monetary system that we have is essentially just a way of, it's just something we can, it's just information about who owns how much money, and we can put that onto the blockchain and use these properties to create a money system that no government can manipulate and everyone can freely access and use. Yeah. So that's how I would describe it.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much. You told us about Bitcoin right now. Right now we hear a lot about Ethereum. Mm-hmm. What is exactly Ethereum? How is it different from other blockchains? And why is it so famous right now?
Yeah. So I guess I can start with the story of how Ethereum was started by, or the idea of Ethereum came up with from Vitalik Buterin, the man who kind of came up with the general idea. So as I mentioned, Bitcoin is a blockchain that is a monetary system. So basically, the information that you're recording down is how much you own, or actually it's not even how much you own. It's all the transactions that you have received and all the transactions that you are sending out, and then the sum of how much money you have is just, how much money you have is just a sum of those transactions. Yeah. And so the way, and on a technical level, the way these transactions are done is like a little programming language, you can think of it as, which is very limited, and all it lets you do is just write down how much you're sending to who, and it just controls the logic of receiving the change and all that. And so that's all you can do, basically, just send money from one person to another. What Vitalik realized was, when trying to come up with more complicated financial agreements on using blockchain, he realized that we already have, what if we create, instead of trying to create a new blockchain for every financial model and try to maybe have one for some kind of derivatives or all various different kind of financial contracts and agreements, what if we have a generalized system where you can, using one blockchain and one system, you can write down any kind of logic for an agreement of some kind. And we already had, the way you write down any kind of logic is with a universal programming language that's Turing complete, meaning it has all the features of programming languages that we have today, which Bitcoin's scripting language did not. And so he created Ethereum, which is essentially a blockchain where you can write down a piece of code that does any kind of agreement and sends money from any person to, or from one account to any other account in whatever way you want. And this essentially, what it created was the first open computing platform that has a financial system built into it. And this is extremely exciting because now you can do all the different things that people are really struggling to use blockchain for extremely easily. You can, after Ethereum's creation, we saw a new coin being invented every second, because it went from copying the Bitcoin ledger or Bitcoin's code and creating a whole new blockchain and getting people to run the blockchain. I went from that to literally like a few lines where it's just saying like, all right, the total supply is this much, and each person, or to send it, you can just call this function, which sends it, and and so now we see Ethereum being used for all sorts of things, whether that's ownership, like NFTs, which are essentially just a line of code that says this person owns this link or this piece of information. Sorry. And so that's what an NFT is. And DAOs are basically just a system for anyone to be able to vote on Ethereum, on the blockchain, and that lets you see basically all activity and how people voted and all the results. And because blockchains are immutable, as I was talking about, all the processes all this information is kept forever, and you can really clearly see how things are done. And so that's Ethereum.
Applications that Ethereum can bring. Right now, if you had to think about a project or a blockchain in particular, like one project that you really like and you want to see developed in the future, which one will you choose?
Okay, interesting question. I think the example I'm really excited about that I go back to often is this one project called Helium. I don't necessarily want to like endorse it because I don't follow it very closely, and I don't know if this is the implementation of this idea. But I think there's this really exciting idea of decentralizing not only things digitally, information, but also decentralizing actual hardware and infrastructure in the real world. The idea of Helium is basically, what if we create an open instead of basically relying on a centralized company to create like cell towers and create internet infrastructure. What if we use blockchain's aspects and features to incentivize individuals all across the world to build their own network that's maintained by no particular person, and basically create a platform for anyone to be able to send information digitally or wirelessly without any central authority. And so the idea is basically anyone can put together a little antenna that broadcasts the wireless network, and then for all the data that goes through it, you get paid. So you have like an incentive to make your wireless connection as strong as possible, to grow the network as much as possible. And because I'm really excited about the opportunity of basically creating decentralized infrastructure. I think web infrastructure especially is incredibly important. The more stuff we move to the web, the more control the companies that run the infrastructure get. I think, especially now we're seeing with cloud computing, every company is transitioning their servers and the things that they used to run in-house to much faster and more efficient cloud computing infrastructure. And this gives a lot of power to Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, whatever companies that are running these systems. And I think it's to be considering. We saw Amazon take down Parler, which was a social media app for political reasons. Now, I'm not commenting on whether or not that was right, or for that specific instance. But the thing is, at the end of the day, this remains a fact that now these infrastructure providers have the ability to choose who uses their infrastructure. And it's easy to think that, oh, well, you can just build your own server, but now it's becoming much more difficult and impossible. So I think it's going to be important to try to decentralize this infrastructure, and instead of having a company control it, build out systems that are decentralized and owned by nobody, and that way we can build a more resilient infrastructure.
Yeah, sure. It seems to be a very interesting project. To end up with this interview, can you please tell us how do you think, if you think blockchain is just a hype or if it's just the future?
I think this is an important question, because whenever there's money involved in a big new wave, and whenever there's an opportunity to make money, you get bubbles, and you get a lot of overexcitement. People are financially incentivized to be excited about something, whether or not it really deserves to be something to be excited about. And so I think right now there's a lot of technologies and there is a lot of hype. But I think that doesn't mean that the actual core technology doesn't deserve that hype, right? We saw with the .com era a huge bubble of .com companies. Every company that had some kind of affiliation with the internet had huge stock market prices and a lot of money flowing into it. And there was a huge crash as a result of that. But now, our lives are so much more integrated into the internet. And so likewise, even if there is a crash in cryptocurrency prices or whatever will represent some kind of crash, I think at the core of it, today we only realize more and more, I think it's becoming more and more apparent, the need for decentralization in our money system, in our computing, and all sorts of other things. Canada is a surprising country to see this coming out of. It implemented a law that let them seize the bank accounts of pretty much anyone. And so people are donating to a peaceful protest, and now all of a sudden they can't access their funds. These people are the same people this situation is exactly what Bitcoin is created for. With Bitcoin, your transactions cannot be stopped by anyone. There's no ability to censor transactions, to stop someone from using the system. And so you actually own your money. You're not renting the government's money. And so, yeah, we see that in China. We're seeing that, I think, right now with Ukraine and Russia. There's just tons of examples of why it's important to be able to own your money and just own your systems without any kind of centralized weak points. And so, yeah, I think this is definitely going to be something you're going to see a lot in your future, and it's going to become a big part of your life.
Amazing. Yeah. What an interesting way to close this debate. I guess it's a very important issue. In the future, we will need to talk a lot about blockchain. So thank you so much for all this relevant answer. J'espère que cette petite conférence vous a plu. Je tiens à remercier tout particulièrement Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for all your time.
Thank you.
Donc on se retrouve très bientôt sur Starting Blockchain. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and enjoy starting blockchain.